What's up, everybody? My name is Mike Langford. I'm a music producer, engineer, and mixer based in Toronto, Canada. Welcome back to Let's Mix Live, where I live stream some mix sessions using Pro Tools from start to finish, warts and all, showing examples of what could be done during modern mix productions. Keep saying it, there's 101 different ways to make your music sound great, and I'm here not to show you what you should do, but what you could do. Let's get started. New song this week, one that I'm pretty excited about. The song is called Morning Sickness, and the band is called Bosnian Rainbows. If you're a rock fan, you might recognize the name Omar Rodriguez Lopez, or the band The Mars Volta. If you haven't, and you're a rock fan, I highly recommend checking out the first Mars Volta record that I still can't pronounce the name of. Just want to thank everyone for joining me today on this. Katie is here. How's it going, Katie? Yeah, I have a bit of a script that I put together for that because I wanted to try to make it a little bit more structured for starting. Because I do watch these back. I do watch these back, believe it or not. New song this week, Morning Sickness by Bosnian Rainbows. Michelle's here. How's it going, Michelle? When I found this on the site, again, I find all these mix sessions. Again, if you're a new mixer, an old mixer, new engineer, old engineer, I get all these from a site called Cambridge Music Technology. I've listened through a lot of the stuff on there and made I want to say a short list, but it's definitely a long list at this point. When I found this tune, I was like, really? They have a Bosnian Rainbows tune on here, and I listened to it. I was like, yep, that's gonna be on the short list, and it kind of kept creeping up the list of songs I wanted to work on. So we're here finally. Not that I was rushing through the long wait song, through the country song, but to get to this one, I was really curious to look through the tracks and just kind of see what's there, because this one is released on Spotify as well. Well, the Bosnian Rainbows record is on Spotify, so I was checking that out a little bit. So I have listened to the released mix of this because I was curious, but I still felt like there was something that we could all look at in this session, and I wanted to mix it because I'm here for fun too. So fun and entertainment. It's a two-way street. Kay says, good. How are you today? I'm doing good. I feel energized. I feel rested. It's been a long past couple weeks. I think it always feels like it's a long past couple weeks for people. But definitely the last couple weeks was just trying to get stuff off my own personal work pile, and still maintain the streaming schedule, especially with this, with Let's Mix Live. So how are you doing, Katie? Going to switch over to Pro Tools here. There we go. So to talk about where we're at, all I've done so far is import the tracks. Again, I get these sessions from Cambridge Music Technology. Link is below, and the details are below if you're watching this on YouTube. Also, all the sessions there are for educational purposes, so that's what we're doing on this channel. I've imported the tracks. I will say it's interesting because there's a rough mix in here, and then there was a reference mix in here. And you can look at the two waveforms, and one has probably a limiter on it and a little bit more processing, and the other one looks like maybe it's a little bit, I don't want to say drier, but just a little bit rougher as a rough mix. But also there's this stuff at the end over here. I'm curious what's going on over there because there's just a bunch of stuff. And usually a bunch of stuff, that could mean live recording because they just let the tape run on this. So I'm curious to hear what's happening over there. The only thing I've done so far is bring in my test tones. This is where I can put the disclaimer in and the warning. If you are listening at home, depending on your system, be your speakers or headphones or your PA system line array you may have in your basement, you know who you are. Be mindful of your levels, especially when I'm EQing or sweeping around frequencies. Be mindful of your levels because you wouldn't want any damage to happen when I'm doing stuff over here, especially sweeping around some of the lower frequencies. So be mindful with that. Also, I do encourage what's the word I'm looking for? Being cautious with your own listening levels. You don't need to listen to everything on full blast all the time. That's going to just fatigue your ears pretty quickly. So all I've done is put in my 1K test tone. I'm going to hit play on that so I can check my levels over here. Looks good over here, so I can select both of these. I do try to call out some of the keyboard commands that I use when I am working in Pro Tools here. There's a plugin or a widget or whatever you want to call it, or an app that can visualize when I'm pressing keys, and I just got to get that sorted, because I think that's going to help people, because I get asked all the time, when you did that thing and then that stuff happened, what buttons were you pressing? And I actually don't remember, because I just kind of mash the keyboard sometimes. It's like, I'm going to date myself for a second here. It's like with an old phone where you had to actually dial someone's number and not just click their name or just, reply to their call sort of thing. And you didn't actually know the person's number. You actually had to go through the motions on the keypad, on the number pad, to remember what their number is. And if you like flipped the keypad upside down, you wouldn't actually know what their phone number is anymore. I just dated myself. And I'm actually looking at the number pad on my keyboard here, and I think it's upside down. So I think on old ones, the one was in the top left, and on the number pad here, it's on the bottom right. Or sorry, bottom left. And I think it was maybe like that because it was quicker to type in prices for things. Because most things probably didn't cost $7, $8, or $9, or $70, $80, or $9, or $700, $800, or $900. We just went down a rabbit hole together there. All right, so I'm gonna right click on these two here and hide and make inactive, because I don't need to see these. So again, all I've done so far is import the tracks into Pro Tools. One thing I would do off the start is I'm gonna save as, because I've just called it Morning Sickness Mixmaster. I'm gonna go save as. I have a hotkey made for this, if you're wondering. You can do that in System Preferences and go to Keyboard. I'm going to call this Mix Prep 1. I highly recommend lots of saves. Lots of saves. Katie's thing, I remember those days as far as the having to manually enter someone's phone number and ask them what they're up to. Or probably you call them with purpose. Because I feel like I'm going to rant today. I feel there's a lot of conversations that don't really have purpose. They're touch points with people. Let them know that you're there, but like a lot of them don't have the same weight or substance that an old school phone call would have. All right, first thing I would do after saving it, I'd highly recommend save all the time. Also, if there's anyone with a betting spirit, I wonder if Pro Tool or the computer will like fully crash today. We're about 50%. It doesn't crash when I'm working, but it crashes when we're live streaming. I don't know why that is. All right, so track, I want to put in a new track here. I want to put in a stereo master fader here. Again, if anyone that's just joining us, that's new to these sessions, I don't bring in any of my templated Pro Tools tracks. It's like as far as my subgroups, my main mix bus and stuff, I try to build things. Presets are still fair game, but I try to build things as we're kind of going to kind of show how the process could go here. So I'm going to bring in our master fader here so we can see what our levels are doing and do a couple other things. So I want to listen to, actually, we're just going to zoom in here. I'll put it in slip mode. Make sure edit keyboard focus. Make sure that's selected. It'll be orange if it's selected. Because I can just hit T and that'll zoom in. I just want to see if this is in time. That's not in time. I can look at that and know that's not in time. So I'm going to solo both of these. These are both the reference tracks that were, one of them was the preview from the site. The other one was a rough mix. Yeah, that was in the actual session. So if I play these together, that's going to be loud. I'm going to group these. I'm just going to call those refs. I'm just going to, so I just don't know how loud it's going to be. So you can hear they're not in time together. So I'll suspend those groups and hit Shift Command G. I'll use the grabber tool. And I can probably line up these transients here. So I'll just grab that and pull it over. So that looks kind of, yeah, it's close enough. All right, so this is the first one. Let's kind of A-B these two to hear what's going on. So we'll just listen to the preview one. And the other one. Yeah, so there's a pretty big difference between the two. And I'm just curious, what is this over here? Just gonna go back to this. Applause. Live recording. Okay, so I was curious because usually that's not there on the reference here. That's been cut off, but on the reference over here, you can see where they faded that out. The reference over here. I just want to hear this one. So they just grabbed the... There's a weird edit on that. They may just need to get a clean edit so that they could fade out where the applause was, maybe. But that's weird. There's a weird edit there. Whatever. So, we have those lined up. That's lined up with the song. There's a couple things I'm going to do before I even listen through. I'm going to just hold Option so I can adjust all those at the same time. I'm going to hold Option again, click all that. I'm going to can deselect the master there. Let's just hit all on this. I don't like to start my stuff right at the beginning here, so I don't know if we have a tempo yet. Let's listen through. I'm going to mute those two. I don't know if I want to listen to the rough mix or if I want to listen to... Let's listen to the rough mix, actually. And we're just going to listen through from the top. I'm going to make some notes. I like making notes. I think notes are good. I've realized my trusty pet vet hospital pen is in my backpack, which is behind me. So I'm going to hit play on this. We're going to listen to the reference. Just because, again, I think it's important to listen to where the band was at or the engineer was at. And I'm going to make some notes. The song doesn't look too long. It looks like it's 4:25. All right, so the first minute's just guitar stuff, I think. I have 4 pens in my backpack. I don't know why I took a 4th one yesterday. Although this one feels good to write with. I guess if there's an audience there and Omar from Mars Volta is in your band, or I guess maybe it's probably his band, you're going to expect some guitar circus stuff. Again, first Mars Volta record. Awesome. All right, so that was first listen of this session. I'm just gonna let this run out actually. First listen of this session, Morning Sickness by Bosnian Rainbows. Again, featuring Omar Rodriguez Lopez from the Marcelta. Made my list of things I wanted to look at. Prep the vocals. I always say that this is a live recording, or this is live recording. 4-piece band. I'm hearing drums. I'm hearing keyboard, bass. I'm hearing guitar. I'm hearing vocals. So we're not getting a second guitar like we are with a lot of modern recordings where we just double track the guitars to make them wider. So there's a couple of things we can do to try to widen that guitar or just give a little bit more space to it, which I would look at. So prep vocals, check the drums, see if we have a tempo that we're playing to, because they might be just playing it in the air. Either way, it's good to get a rough tempo. It feels pretty steady throughout the whole song. So if we find our tempo, that's going to help with our, especially with our delays and reverbs. Also, I know I lean on it all the time, but just some augmentation for kicks and snares. I don't hear any toms in this song at all. Just looking at how they have this named here. So yeah, there's not a ton of tracks to work with either. That's the other thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like that's not much, but we can make this sound pretty full. Again, what we're trying to do often is like what's in our head. We're trying to get that to come out the speakers. So that is my goal here. Add some movement. I think we can add a little bit of movement with guitars, especially with some of the guitar work during the verses where there's some kind of accent notes, kind of background stuff. I think we can use some panning to kind of move that around a little bit. So I can try a couple tricks there. Just some technical stuff, just gain staging. Like the recording is good. I'm not knocking that at all, but just looking at some levels. We could probably bring down a few of these things just to help with some of the effects, the plugins later on and what they're looking to see with their compressors, but also just some saturation. I haven't really done much with saturation and using kind of distortion kind of across the mix to glue a few things together. So I want to experiment with that a little bit. Finding vocal tone. The vocal tone on this, I like it as it is. I think down the cable. I think it's over here. You can hear all the bleed because it's live. So there's a couple of things I want to try, just getting a different vocal tone on there. But we'll see, because of the amount of bleed that's in there, sometimes it can cause a huge problem. Some of the keyboard stuff, I'm wondering if we need to time some of that. Again, I don't know how much is in the room. Though you can hear the entire band in the room. So it might be a live band playing mics on instruments and just taking a feed from that. 'Cause you can hear the bass, like the bass keys. So there's that, and then we'll have a listen through another one in a second, or in a little bit, to put some markers in. Sometimes we can guess the form of the song, sometimes we can't, but what I wanted to do is just listen through. So first thing I'm going to do here, well, I say first thing like 19 times when we're working here. I'm going to click all here. So I don't like starting at the very beginning, but let's see if we can get a tempo here. Actually, I'm going to deselect my groups. Sometimes I just wonder why I bother doing certain things constantly. Let's put our subgroups in so we can make sense of our tracks. We might as well go ahead and do that. So we have 4 things we know we have. I'm gonna make our aux tracks here. So Shift Command N. I can press Command and the right key, that goes to stereo, and then I can hold Command and down for aux input. And we're gonna make 4 of them right now. I build my mixes from bottom to top: drums, bass, rhythm guitars, lead guitars, and then whatever. And then the very top is I put my vocals and my kind of depth effects, like my delays and reverbs. So let's call this drum master. One above it, bass master. Even though it's keyboards, we'll just call that guitar master. Even though if it's one track, I'll still have a subgroup for it. It just helps me kind of separate things. I'm not one to color code everything. I know it's kind of, well, it's pretty pastel-y, pretty soft, muted colors on those tracks, but I'm not one to like color code all my tracks over here and stuff. It just looks weird to me. Okay, so let's look at this. That's bass M81. Let's just have a listen through some of these to make sure we have the right tracks. That sounds like bass. We'll put that up there. This is hi-hat. That stays with drums. Kick drum. That stays with drums. Drums MPC. What is that? Let's call that bass. This is snare drum. That's guitar. So let's say that's guitar. What's that say? That is scrappy. That is a scrappy guitar. This is synth moog. Let's call that bass. This might be like all bass. That's our snare drum again. Virus. Let's call that another synth. Let's make another subgroup for that, because that might be a different thing to mess with. So let's call that synth master. And this vocals. So we're just to me it's easier to kind of see what's happening. We have 3 tracks of drums: kick, snare, and hi-hat. We have 3 tracks for our synth bass, I think, because I think that's the room that's got the microphone on something. We have 1 guitar. We have a stereo from the virus, which I think is more pads. We can get some movement out of that too. There's a microphone on whatever that's coming through. That's not direct. Interesting. Very interesting. All right, so we have all this separated right now. Let's go ahead and make some other groups here. So we'll call this all drums. And turn our groups back on. Refs off, that's fine. We'll call this all bass. This is going to bug me. If you right click on your groups, you can go to modify. And I'm just going to put a little underscore. There we go. I don't need to put groups on these other ones because they're just 1 track, but just if you want to edit those, you can see it's a little timeline bar there. So let's just have a look at the tempo here. So let's solo the drums. That's the kick drum. And let's just go at the beginning here. I'll just put a little break there. So if I just hit B, because edit keyboard focus is selected, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so we have 4 bars there. We'll see if we can get a tempo off that. So we'll double click that. If we go to, where is it? I know the hotkey for it. I'm trying to identify beat. It's Command I. So let's call this bar 28, and then let's call this bar, because it's 4 bars away. We'll call that bar 32. So this is giving us 103.34. So let's assume this is the BPM is 103. Let's see what happens. So we'll call that 103. What we can do as well is we can make another aux channel, and we'll call this click. Now Pro Tools has a stock click sound in here, so we'll just go into our inserts here. Okay, the way that I work as well, I like to have inserts A to E, so if you need to add any compression or effects, I can still get it from the edit window. And our I/O, our ins and outs, and then track color, just so I can see my auxes and my audio tracks and instruments really easily. So I can just go here, plug in, instrument, click 2. Now this will just start having that beep sound off the top here. I'm just going to hit always solo safe. Solo safe because I have the drum solo down here. To put it in solo safe, command and then select it. It'll gray it out. So I'm going to go over to where this is happening. And this might be a little bit scary. I'm going to highlight all of that. I'm going to hit shuffle, and I'm going to pull this back. We're just listening to the drums. I just want to see how in time the drums are with the tempo we found. And it's okay for it to kind of shimmy a little bit or wiggle a little bit. And now we're off. Okay, so we're just going to mess with this just a little bit. There's ways that we can put this back together, so I'm not too concerned right now. I'm going to put that at 104. Maybe they started with the click. Okay, I'm going to try one more. I'm going to try 103.5. 103.5. I highly recommend not having half of BPMs. Then again, they could have their metronome at 207. Okay, so we start really strong at 103. And then we hit there, and then that idea of playing to a click, I think, stops being the thing. So let's go with 103 for our tempo, and go with 103 for our tempo. So all I had to do is just hit Command Z to undo, and then Shift Command Z redoes, or redos. So I'm going to put this back here. We have 103. I'm going to write it down. I know everyone at home can remember, but I need to write things down. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to hit all. I'm going to select everything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull everything over. So let's put our metronome at 103, or our BPM for a session. And I'm going to go to bars and beats. We were in minutes and seconds. I'm going to go to where our kick drum happens. So we still have that little break there. Okay, this is where it's going to get scary for a second. Just stay with me here. I'm going to highlight all of this because we're using the transient from that kick drum over here as the beginning. That's bar 1, beat 1 of our song. So I'm going to delete all of this. We're in shuffle mode, sorry, in slip mode right now. I'm going to go to grid mode. I'm going to pull everything over to somewhere that makes sense. Let's start. Well, we can start around 1 minute. So it's 1 minute there. Make sure that we're on bar 1 of something. So we're on bar 1. Our grid is on minutes and seconds. Put that on to bars and beats. So now bar 27, beat 1. That's our beginning. So that way when we start here, 2, 3, 4. You can see it counting along here. So we're starting good there. I can go back into slip mode. Using the trimmer tool, I can pull all these waveforms back now. So we're just leaving a little bit of a gap there in case we have samples or something that we need to bring in. We have some space for it. We don't need to pull this over too far because all of this intro we might, well, it looks like we're going to use. We should be fine. We have a few seconds there. A lot of our samples are really short, so we should be good that way to kind of lead into that. Usually I leave about 10 bars, 10 to 12 bars off the top, but I think we should be good this way. You can see a little bit of the space at the beginning there. It should be all right. Okay, so we've moved everything over. We're starting the song kind of around a minute here. This is going to bug me. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that. I'm going to pull this over further because there's really not a lot of space at the beginning there because there's a lot of intro. So I'm actually going to pull this closer to 2 minutes. And I'll put it back in grid mode. Your function keys F1 through 4, shuffle, slip, spot, and grid. You're using shuffle and grid mode quite a bit. So let's bring this over to 2 minutes. we can have that. So bar 52. Yeah, bar 52. We can start on that. So again, should be able to. That's all still in time because it's starting right on that on bar 52, beat 1. So I can pull this back out again. Just put it in slip mode. Okay, now we have a healthy amount of gap at the beginning here. I just feel better looking at that. I know it looks excessive. There's a lot there, but this is my life right now. And we could probably start around bar 12. Let's do that. One more time, just for my own sanity. These are all the things that you'd be doing. And the client be like, what? What in the heck are you doing? So I'm just going to pull this back a little bit. Let's try bar 32. Okay, I can live with that. I think that's a good happy medium there. There's about 18 seconds worth of time there. So I think that looks good. Starting now on bar 32. I like that. Mathematically, in computer world and music world, that sounds better for the song to start there. All right, I'm just going to put a marker in there. We'll call this intro 2 because there's an intro over here as well. So I'm just going to listen for a second here. We'll call this intro over here as well. We'll call this intro 1. So I see, no, this is the thing too. I capitalized one of them and I didn't capitalize the other one. I'm sure there's someone who majors in psychology that's just like, we really need to get a professional to talk to this guy about some of his naming conventions, stuff like that. All right, so we have everything selected and added here. I just moved over again. I just have a little gap there for any samples or anything we might need to kind of tuck over here, or anything we might want to save, loops. Even though it's a live recording, sometimes you need to put a Band-Aid on something. So sometimes you can just hide a few things over here. So I wanted to select all of this. I'm going to deselect our preview and all this stuff up here. What I'm going to do is hold Shift and Option. I'm going to duplicate all of these playlists. Why am I doing that? Because I want to rename all this stuff, but I still want to keep the original name underneath it. And if we do any edits or we need to fix anything and go back to the original, we have it saved in behind it. So we're going to call this one Vox Lead, and we'll call that 1. And I usually use .c instead of saying comp or something. I just say .c for my naming conventions. T is tuning or timing. Z is any noise correction or noise or fixing things like declicking or denoising or whatever we need to do. So we'll call that Vox Lead 1. We'll call this Synth Virus.c. So I think there's only one of them anyways. Try to keep your names as kind of truncated as possible. We'll call this Guitar 1. We've got some Bassmaster. We'll call this, let's just say, that's the Moog. So let's just call that Moog. Pro Tools, hang in there. So we'll call that Moog 1. Well, actually, we'll call that, we'll just put a B in behind it so we know that that's part of the bass stuff. Drums MPC, I want to look at that one a bit more before I rename it. And I'll call this bass amp because I think it is the amp sound of what's going on. And down here, so we have our kick and we have our hi-hat. And we have our snare. I do believe it's snare top. There's not a ton of tracks here, but we can see how we shortened a lot of these names from something like that to something like that. If you want to go to your mix window in Pro Tools, quickly it's Command equals. And I highly recommend having either your mix window or your edit window up. You don't need to see both of them at the same time. I know it might feel more computery looking at everything at the same time, but we don't need to do that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about these shorter names here. It's easier to see what's happening. I don't even like having synth at the beginning of that virus thing there, so we can probably just truncate that. So that's that's, yeah, it looks pretty good. Also, like if you need to export these tracks, it's just easier to, I don't even need to have that. I think it's fine. I think this stuff's fine. There's little things that'll like, it'll bother me as it's going on, so I need to do that. Again, another reason for unattended mix sessions as I document them in real time. So we have all of this. That, again, if we need to go back to the original, or if someone, say this had 50 tracks and they were all poorly named tracks with like inside jokes and, or unnamed if it just said audio 5 or something like that. And you're like, okay, I know it's bass. Why couldn't you just call it bass? It's easier to go back there. Also, if we make any edits, it's easier to go back in time quickly, especially when we get into vocals, because we might have, you know, multiple playlists of just vocals for when we've tuned and timed it or prepped it, or if there's any band-aids, or if there's any, you know, clean edits, if there's any cuss words in here or something like that. So that's why I do that. Make sure to save often, because this is Pro Tools, not sponsored by Avid, but this is Pro Tools. Other thing I want to do, because it bugs me too that like this goes right to the edge here. If you put a marker over here, edge of universe, I like that. Now if we hit Option A, it'll show everything in the session. It'll give us that little bit of buffer there, because the last piece of audio, or the last what's it called, the last marker that's there, it'll go to that. So I'm gonna do one more listen through and put some markers in for the song. I know this is all guitar circus whiz bang stuff over here, so I'm going to start closer over here. I'm going to inactivate our previews. I don't need to listen to those right now, so I'll just hit inactive on both of those. Again, there's one that was in the session, the rough mix, and there's the one preview from the actual band to listen through. Oh, I kind of want to listen to that now. Yeah, I'm going to listen to it and then put markers in. It's funny. You make decisions and then you change them really quickly. So it's listening. If you want to turn off your click in real time, you can just hit 7 on the number pad. So I'm just going to listen through and put some markers in. Just get an idea of what the actual preview was doing too. A lot of reverb on the snare here. Verse 1. Whoa, 1 second. There's a click there. Things that bug me. Like a technical click. Pre-chorus. Verse 2. Tangled up in my headphone cable. There we go. Chorus. That kind of pre-chorusy riffy thing. Bridge solo. Yeah, if you have a pretty well-known guitarist in your band, you're gonna get some guitar solos. Bridge with box. Chorus. The second time that happens. Let's call that, so we change our drum groove there. Let's call that C2 outro. We change our drum groove because the hi-hats open up a little bit. And then pre-chorusy thing. Okay, so we heard that before. There was that edit on the guitar. There's a click over here when the vocals come right in. And I'm wondering. I do want to check on Spotify. Not right now. That's our scrubber tool. So if you want to make intros for Radiohead and stuff, just it's right there. Or you can make a dance track if you just run that back and forth, but there's a click in there. I'm curious if it's in the track. I was going to put a marker in for that. Again, these are the little technical things this is what keeps me awake at night. Lots of like level stuff doesn't bug me, but technical things bug me. So I'm going to listen to the vocal here, actually. I'm going to solo that vocal. So I don't hear it there. Nope. Nope. I'm listening for that click. Okay, so my guess is there was an edit there on the vocal track when the vocals were coming in and it didn't get faded. That's my guess. That's okay, but it should not be a thing. So, all right, we listened through, we put our markers in. I don't hear that click on the other track, so I can just hold Option and go over top of the marker and see a little minus sign. You can get rid of it that way. Also, you can go to Window. You can go to Memory Locations because they're markers, but the window is called Memory Locations. I don't know why. You can do the same thing over here. If you hold Option, you'll see the little pencil tool and put the eraser on it. At what point are we not going to understand what that is? We're just like, what was that used for? Everyone just uses their thumbs to type things. This makes no sense. Okay, so we're good. I can inactivate this. I didn't mind the preview mix. There's a healthy amount of reverb on the drums, which I do like. I feel like the synth stuff, again, I'm listening in headphones right now, which are very comfortable. I feel like the bass stuff could be louder. Again, I'm just listening and figuring out what could it sound like to me. This is a live recording. We have 9 tracks that we're working with, 10 technically because this virus here, that keyboard pad stuff is I'm running over a cable and it's bugging me. There's not a whole lot of tracks to work with here, but one thing I want to point out too, again, with the Cambridge Music Technology site, it's fantastic for mixers, especially if you're trying to kind of want to have stuff to practice on, especially things outside of your normal comfort zone genre-wise, but also from an engineering point of view. This song, I think, sounds really good, and they have 10 tracks of recording. So don't think you need 20 tracks to make it sound decent, or more tracks the better. I'm of the belief your vocal is 51% of your song, regardless of what's happening. And the vocal track is awesome. Still going to dust over it, or try to dust over it with some tuning, some prepping that way, tuning and timing. But the emotions there, the deliveries there, and when people give good emotional performances, you lean on that. You don't lean on, well, again, different genres sensitivities, but you don't need a ton of tracks. You could have 3 tracks, you could have 1 track, you could have 50 tracks. It doesn't matter the track count, but don't feel like you need to just keep putting microphones on things, because you're going to need more, the ability to fuss around with things by having so many tracks to work with. End rant on that. I'm going to look at, I didn't do any rebalancing of the tracks as far as like the actual loudness levels. I can look at the meters over here a little bit too. Turn this down a little bit. So we're crushing our meter over here. I'm going to turn our groups back on. I'm going to select our vocal. I'm going to hold Command so I can just select these individually. And I'm going to make a group. So Command G, I'm going to call this all tracking. This allows me to move all those faders at the same time as well. So I can bring, so I have the all selected for groups. So I can bring these down now together. There we go. I can kind of just do some balancing. That guitar, I could probably bring that level down a little bit. I kind of want it to be closer to there. So I can go to clip gain here. And let's just bring that down. Let's bring that down 4.5 dB. And see what it looks like. Okay, so we're bringing it down a little bit. So we add compressors and stuff. It's going to help give us a little bit of headroom to work with. And everything else looks pretty good. What I would do as well, because we did make that change there, I'm going to suspend our group. So Shift Command G. I'm going to double click the guitar. I'm going to go back in time to this other playlist here, and I'm going to paste it over top of it, just so if we do have to go back to that for anything, those volumes are the same. I want to listen to this track here because we didn't rename it. So we'll call this just MPC, because it's more kind of bassy stuff. It's still with the bass stuff. It's really loud though. That's what I was getting at with this. So I think we can probably bring that one down maybe 6 dB. So I'll bring that down just using clip gain. If you wanted to finally adjust this, you can hold Command, and that'll allow you to just do 0.1 increments as well. So I'll bring that down 6 dB. Again, this is really well tracked, but sometimes with live stuff, just give myself a little bit more headroom there. That snare's fine. So same thing, I'll just double click that one. I'll go back in time, paste that over. And I think everything else looks pretty good. I'll turn my groups back on. I can turn off all tracks. So that looks good. So let's just rough this in a little bit. I like to run or just kind of set my levels. So I'm going to go back to here. If you select this little fader over here, it's really difficult sometimes. Patterson's here. How's it going, Patterson? It's really difficult to see some of these buttons or kind of places to select stuff, because it can be very specific at times, because I could be doing the inputs and outputs. I could be selecting the actual fader, which I want there. I could be messing with the volume of the track. There's a whole bunch of things here. So just be mindful. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to hit this red button. This keeps this fader up on top of the screen. I'm going to go back to our mix window. And this, so if you had 40 tracks you were working with, this would allow you to always kind of see your master output here. So I'm going to get our level. Okay, so all of these subgroups, I need to put these in solo safe. So hit Command, hit S, Command S, Command hit S, or so hit solo. This makes it so I can always hear if something is soloed. So all these tracks are pulled down right now. So I should hear nothing. Been proven correct. I'm going to hold Control because I have groups here, but if I hold Control, I can just mess with individual tracks. I'm going to bring our kick drum up. Usually set my peak around minus 10, -6. We have to move it up quite a bit. We'll probably do some EQ and compression on it. So let's leave that amount of headroom right there. That's probably fine. It may seem like this is low, but we can move these levels around especially once we put compressors and stuff on things. Just for my own sanity, let's just put that. Just looking at this. And our snare. Again, live recordings, so there's lots of bleed. I'm liking this 3 tracks of drums. I think it's very bold. Someone made some human noise there too, which I think is fun. I think it's the drummer. Yeah, drummers sometimes just make noises while they're playing and you can't really hear it until it's soloed. Okay, so we're seeing our levels now. They're up around -6 there. Because this is all grouped, I can pull this down a little bit. We're just getting a balance. I'm just kind of hearing what's here. I moved the hi-hat off to the right a little bit. I'm going to think of this as audience perspective. So if we're looking at the drummer, and the drummer's normal, not left-handed, the hi-hat, if we're looking at it, should be on the right side. Floor tom should be on the left side. If we're on the drums, our hi-hat's on our left side. If you're right-handed, and then your floor tom's on the right side. Okay, so we have our... Turn this up a little bit for everyone in the back. Just gonna bring some of these up. That one, the bass amp has lots of bleed in it, so we might not go to that. Because I feel like that's the Moog. Yeah, I feel like that's the Moog, so we can bring that down a little bit. Oh, I'm a silly goose. We're going to take these drum tracks. I haven't routed them anywhere. I usually use bus 1 and 2 for my drums. And for my bass, usually it's 5 and 6. For my guitars, usually it's 3 and 4. You're wondering, why would that be that order? Why in the world? My synths and stuff, we can put that up 17, 18 or something. And then our vocals, I was debating because I have 7 and 8 where my vocals come out. And not that it makes a difference, but you may be wondering, why would I put guitars on 3 and 4 and then my bass on 5 and 6? Because when I track guitars, I track those after drums. Because it's a lot easier to change a bass part to match 2 or more guitar things that you've tracked than it is the other way around. If you change something on the bass, and then it can be a bit of a thing. So our inputs for our auxes here, so 7 and 8 for our vocals, 17, 18 for our synths, guitars are 3 and 4, and our bass, the bass is 5 and 6. All right, so now I should be able to see our levels on there. I'm just going to pan those a little bit. I have ideas for things we can do there. Now our guitar. Again, I've mentioned it half jokingly. Know where the water comes from. Usually they need to be nice and loud. Usually your water's coming from your singer. And in bands like this, where a guitar player is definitely a feature, Probably loud and proud. Now, traditionally, bass players on the left, sorry, if we're looking at the stage, bass players on the hi-hat side, so they'd be on the right, and your guitar player would be on the left. So we'll just go ahead and move those over a little bit. Okay, this virus, these pads, we might be leaning on those too. Just to add a little bit of movement. So just bringing the faders up, pretty dark, pretty woolly with the sources. I am curious. Excuse me. I am curious how they're playing the bass, if they're actually hitting all the notes or using arpeggiators. Okay, so I'm just going to rebalance again here. Drummer making drummy noises. Patter's saying, when are you going to mix some Nickelback? Probably never. Nickelback's camp is pretty good. It's a well-oiled machine. Not opposed to it, though. So again, there's lots of bleed and stuff with the drums, so even when you bring the bass stuff up, and I can hear the drummer making noise still. Just doing some rebalancing. And the bleed on the vocal too. Sometimes you can use it with you. Like use it, like move with it. It was judo. Judo was brought up. I was talking about using your opponent's force and motion and using it against them, but in a positive way. Okay, so listening through, we know what's going on with the sources. Bleed in that. I'm just for what we're doing. Bleed, bleed, bleed. Pro Tools. Oh, because I've got this selected down here. That's why. That's going to bug me. Bleed. I hear the other part underneath that, but I don't hear bleed in that one. And then this one, bleed. Definitely bleed in that one. Okay, so a couple things I want to do. Let's mute our vocal. Let's start working on some of our drum sounds here. So let's start working on our drum sounds a little bit here. Let's listen to our kick drum. There's a lot of like really low end rumble. So let's go to inserts here. So again, I usually just start with my filters, and I usually work off of, usually start with, what's it called? Usually start with this filtering so we can get rid of. There's a lot of mud down there from the bass, so. So some mud there too. Let's pull that down a little bit. How we're getting vocal in the kick drum mic, I'm curious to see the tracking for that, because usually your kick drum mic is that far from your kick drum, and usually it's a lot louder levels there, but to get vocals in there, that's some loud vocals. So I might adjust all this stuff later when I'm outside the headphones, but we're just gonna do some quick filtering using the headphones. Using Beyerdynamic DT990s, open back. They're very comfortable. All right, so this is our snare drum here. Let's look for some snare. We'll just highlight that section. So same thing, we can probably get rid of a lot of mud that's here. So again, with quick filtering, with just high pass and low pass filters, like all that below 210, 220 hertz, it's just mud. Like we can get rid of quite a bit there. And we're gonna add some augmentation to that. You can hear the rattle from the strainer as well. The more, if you're recording a live band, bass frequencies in particular, they're gonna rattle the snare on the bottom, the strainer on the bottom of the snare drum. So be mindful of that as well. Let's get a little bit of that mud there, get that gone. Hi-hat, same thing. EQ. I'm not just dragging over my EQs. If you hold Option, you can copy your EQs. But so often, I run into problems where it starts affecting multiple EQs, and I don't realize it until later, and I'm like, it still sounds okay, but... same thing, I'll just bring this over. You can hear how much mud. So this is the hi-hat mic. So even all the way up to there, even under 780 or 800 hertz, it's like there's just nothing there. So we can probably filter all that out. You can always add it back in. This is non-destructive. Now let's let the top end kind of do its thing. Pro Tools. Okay, so let's have a here, have a listen. Have a here, have a listen to what this sounds like. So let's clean it up quite a bit, I think. If you hold Command and select those, you can bypass them. And if you hold Option Command, you can bypass everything on that row of inserts. So cleaned up some of the mud. Again, I'm gonna add some samples in for that kick and snare just to clean it up that much more. Okay, let's listen to... It's probably pretty low on your end. Let's bring this up. I know I'm going to use them, so I'll just go ahead. I'm just using the stock Pro Tools EQs. So I'll just put those on there just to have them. I usually leave the first insert module for any correction stuff like Melodyne or denoising or anything like that. And then my first bank is either compression or EQ, but EQ is usually reparative, and then compression, and then a second EQ for sweetening. I'm a subtractive mixer, so I'm usually cutting the things that I don't want, frequencies I don't want in the mix, instead of adding more of the frequencies I like. So let's hop right over to, again, I kind of just mash buttons sometimes. Let's hop over to this bass amp one. Because maybe there's some glue here. Just filter a little bit. There might be some low frequency glue there, so I'm just going to leave that. All right, guitar. It sounds okay. I'm definitely going to mess with this outside with this, like with my speakers. I'm going to leave that for now. Same thing. We'll probably do some EQ on that, so. And vocals, we will deal with that.
By your grown shot.
Okay. If you hear kind of a phasery effect,
By your grown.
like a comb filtering, kind of a wishy, washy effect that's going on. Sometimes when it's live recordings, if the vocalist is holding the microphone and they move around a little bit, or if it's on a stand and they move a little bit, when they move, that can shift the frequencies that it's picking up and are getting into that microphone and what it's seeing. So do be mindful of that as well. I highly recommend it if it is a live recording to have your microphone on a stand if you can, especially if it's studio based, and don't let the singer move it around too much because it can cause problems with the phase relationships in the room. Will it make it a worse song? No. Will it make it a better song? Probably not, but you never know. All right, so we're about there. I have my notes here, so we're still working through some of the prep stuff. I already know that I want to add some kick and snare samples. So this is, if you want to skip ahead like an hour, now might be a good time to do that. Again, we try to show the whole process that we might go through here. I need to move my book. It's in my way. I need to do some typing here, but I'm going to suspend all the groups. So that is Shift Command G. We are an hour and 10 into this. I'm going to say an hour in. I'm going to just make a trigger point or a sample off our kick drum here. Could I go through and just use trigger 2 right on these kick drums? I probably could, but I want to make sure that it's kind of right. So I'm going to just copy that. I'm going to make a new track. I'm going to underscore that. I'm going to call this kick. I'm going to go back to beginning. I'm going to put our kick symbol there. So I've just copied that. So that's Command C. I'm just going to put a quick little fade at the beginning there, just so there's no clicks or anything. Not that we're going to be listening to this. We're just using this as a trigger point. I'm going to hit Shift Option 3. This is going to make that a new clip there. New audio clip. So I'm going to smash an R just to zoom back out. Zoom back in here. I'm going to make tab to transient. Tab to transient. So this way, when we hit tab, we go to the next transient it sees. If that's not there and I hit tab, it's going to go to the end of that audio clip. So if I had a bunch of breaks here and we hit tab, we can scroll through fairly quickly. I'm going to put tab transient on. This is the way we can go through our kick sounds here and add in our samples. You see they're pretty, because it's from the actual kit, putting these trigger points in, it's pretty lined up. We'll still go and look at it later. I am also going to solo this kick drum just in case there's something that's not making sense to me, but it's pretty quick going through. With edit keyboard focus on, our apostrophe is right, L is left, and then P is up, and then semicolon is down. So I can just hit those buttons. It's kind of gamified, pressing these buttons to go through here. Just give me a second. You can just talk amongst yourselves, or if you have any questions about what's going on or why we're doing this. And it's in real time. Feel free to ask. And these are the things that, if a band is with like attending a mix session, you have to think in your mind, do I want to do this in front of them? Because you might have like 3 microphones on a kick drum, and you're still laying some samples in for a reason. One of the main reasons for me is just clarity, especially if there's bleed. But I'm usually wanting to get some sub frequencies, and your samples can usually get them a little bit better than just trying to EQ the snot out of it, try to pull something out that may not actually be there to begin with. Oh, what's going on there? There's some happy feet going on there. Not bad. Not bad at all. That's some pretty good footwork there. And that sounds like single pedal. It doesn't sound like double pedal at all, so respect. Again, I said before, I don't drag in any of my templated stuff, but presets are fair game. And we've been having a pretty good run so far with my kind of rock preset from a past session. But it has some of the samples that I kind of would go for. I would say too, and this is one of those things where it probably makes sense, but then you watch me do stuff, but like, don't get stuck in your ways with certain things. One of the biggest things with productions is getting the drums to sound right. Because you can easily make productions sound dated if your drum sound doesn't evolve a little bit. Definitely in the pop world, definitely in the dance and electronic world to make sure your drum sounds right, but it applies in the rock world as well. As we do have a lot of samples and a lot of drum augmentation going on, as much as we don't want to believe it. That's how we get some of those sounds that you may hear on the radio or for popular commercially viable. I gotta listen to this one too. Really good. It sounds like it's on a click, but it slides so much after that first few bars. So by putting these in, if we can lean on samples a little bit, we can clean up some of the bleed from these tracks to get a little bit more punch out of them. Because as much as it is art rock, alternative art rock, that's what it saw on the wiki page for it, this is a pretty dancey track to me, so I want to have that pulse. And I feel like we can get that if we can lean on samples a little bit. Again, our job for mixing something, our job is to sell the song and pull emotions out of people, sometimes forcefully, making people want to dance. So if you can make people want to dance, you're going to have a pretty good career in music. I can say that too. It's one of those unsaid, unsung, no pun intended, truths when it comes to music. If anyone's ever heard Michael Jackson come on in even a grocery store or something, low-key dance party, you know it. If I was by myself, I would not be talking right now. I'd probably have X-Files or Walking Dead or something on off to the side. So you're wondering, how can you like watch shows and movies when you're working on music? Well, there's some of these things you don't actually need to listen to because you're kind of just on autopilot. Also, if you have an assistant, these are the things that are happening prior to mix. This is all the prep stuff. Okay, believe it or not, we're almost there. Oh, wow. Look at this. This is a whole run. Is that it? Oh, we're close. Now, trigger 2, what I use for drum augmentation, it could pick up a lot of these, but I just prefer to put in the samples to trigger off of, just so that I know it's clean, I know that it's right. Because sometimes you make a little edit or change something and it can fuss with the whole thing. Oh, there we go. Sometimes you fall off the edge of the universe there. All right, that might be the last run. It was. Okay. So we've laid in all those samples fairly quickly. Let's go through the snare as well. Same thing. We'll make a track here, underscore snare. I just use that that little underscore to let me know that that is a sample track. I'm going to grab a trigger point here. Let's grab this one. That one looks good. So let's go to the beginning of that. Copy that. So Command C to copy that. I'll go to the track below. Command V to paste that in. Put a little fade on it. Even though we're not going to listen to it, let's put a fade on it just because of it should. Put a fade on the output there. Shift Option 3 to make that its own clip. Because if we don't do that, if we don't make it its own clip and we need to change something, all of that track is in behind it. So I would prefer to just make that its own clip. Patterson said, do you see after a decade Adam Gonti and Neil met up? I did see that. It warmed my heart. It warmed my heart to see that. Because they both have a lot of history. And I think with everything going on in the world needed that. I will say, though, too, because there's lots of people that like to speculate about other people's relationships. If you're not in the relationship, you don't understand it. So no one really probably understands fully what happened in that 3 days grace camp and why the split happened and everything. We can all speculate, but only those two know what happened in that camp. But it was good to see that. It was good to see them post that pic too. So hope they're both happy and healthy. I'm going to change this sample. I feel like it's a bit low. No, it looks okay over here. I take that back. I will undo that so I put those samples back in. Yeah, by putting these in, we're going to be able to get some more clarity on our drums and get rid of some of the just to get rid of or to reduce some of the bleed that's happening on the snare here. Patterson's saying, surprised you aren't grabbing drinks. I'm still very much not looking to go out and do some of those things. Virus is still raging. We're just not keeping track anymore. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So even with those samples, it's going to help even, instead of using compression to even out those two hits. And there's some people at home right now like, well, that's where the feeling and the emotion comes from. Yeah, cool. But it just sounds a lot more powerful, but better if we're not needing to stand on it with compression. If we could just augment some of those sounds to balance them out with samples underneath. Again, just modern production stuff. There's a little one there. I'm going to bring this one down about 6 dB. And then paste that in. Because there's a little pickup there, and I want to make sure we still have that. Yeah, the drummer's making tons of groany drummer noises, which is fine. One of my pet peeves with drummers recording them is when they make tons of noise at the end of the song, like they just finished the song, and then it's like heavy breathing and instant talking, or they put their sticks down on their snare drum right after they're done. Take care of your tails. Don't make noise. Just sit there. Hold your breath. Patterson, I'm trying to keep track of you in the chat. I constantly see messages off to the side. You're talking about Rage Against the Machine. That's one of the few tickets. There are 2 tickets that my lovely wife and we kept from all the turbulence of the last couple of years concert-wise. I kept Tame Impala, which was last night. I did not go. I just mentally... Well, I had to work. I had a class last night, but also mentally, I don't know if I can get in a building with 14,000 people right now, knowing what's going on with the virus, or I guess my feelings about the virus, sort of thing. But yeah, so we had missed that, and then we kept Rage Against the Machine, which is in July, I think. But Rage is playing Blues Fest in Ottawa here. I know it's Blues Fest, but that's probably... I've talked to a few people about it. That's going to be bonkers. Rage Against the Machine, giant outdoor festival in Ottawa. It's going to be awesome if it happens. Hopefully it happens, because it's a pretty wicked lineup this year. Apparently Blues Fest originally was more of a blues festival, but then you're like, but we could get Foo Fighters. So let's make it bigger than that. Patterson, you keep saying Wage War got added to some... I'm not familiar with Wage War. We are getting there. I'll say too, like there's a lot, like if you're an active rock fan in Canada, you have to work so much harder to find music, especially new bands or other bands. It's not like the US where you have Octane or you have like active rock stations in your city. Toronto doesn't have an active rock station. And like our rock station, it'll play like... trying to think of... It'll play like Deftones, and then it'll play like Blue Rodeo. You're like, okay. I guess they're both rock bands if you're really zoomed out. There's a karaoke show going on upstairs right now. The things you got to do to get through the workday, especially if working from home. I love Wife's a good singer, though. She has a beautiful voice. What is going on here? Okay, so there's a bleed from the kick, but then there's a shot there, and then there's 4 here. That's my story, sticking to it. We're moving along here. Last time I checked the time, it was about 15 minutes ago. So, again, this is all just normal preppy stuff to help the overall mix. Or what we're planning to do with said mix. Sometimes you spend a lot of time working on something, and you're like, well, that sounds like garbage, and then you just don't use it. And that's okay. That's why unattended mix sessions, highly, highly, highly recommend. Especially if you are... doing the production in your band, because then all of a sudden it turns into mixing, or likely turns into mixing by committee, and you're trying to work on something, and then somebody who doesn't necessarily know what's going on starts chiming in with things. I'm 100% not saying this from my experience, but I'm saying this from watching other people's experience, and they tell me, and I'm like, yeah, just don't do that stuff when people are around. Patter's saying, really, where have you been? Oh, again, I'm usually working on music. So, and it sounds weird because when you're working on music, you might not always be listening to music. Right now, I'm just looking at the waveforms here to make sure that they're kind of phase aligned. I'm not super particular about where they are. Yeah, but the grabber tool, that way if I need to move anything, it's easier just to move like that. So I would send you a line, but hard when you ignore off YouTube. Hey, this is where you find me. YouTube is the best. I'm streaming 4 times a week right now because I get messages. And if they're not work-related messages, sometimes I reply in my head. All right, we're just scrolling through this. We've laid in a whole bunch of samples. Patterson says, what are you working on? What are you working on, Patterson? As school as well. School takes up a lot of time. I enjoy that, though. I enjoy looking in, well, actually, I'm not looking at the students because my presenter computer is at the back of the class. So, but I enjoy the vibe of the class, the energy of the students there, excited about the future in creating music. I was not paying attention to some of these when they were going by. I would turn off Walking Dead or X-Files when I'm doing this part, just in case, because it's really easy to, like, all of a sudden you start hearing the strings in X-Files and you're like, oh, what's going on? What's Mulder doing? What did you discover? Or you start hearing like zombie stuff and screams in Walking Dead, and you start paying attention to that. So stuff like that where I know there's a kick drum there, I just kind of find it. I know that's where the main transient is. It should be all right. We'll just kind of move it over a little bit. Move that one. Again, if you have a attended session, you're doing this. All the band is thinking about is like, what was wrong with the recorded track? And you're like, nothing. This is production. It's like watching someone have, like, you know, getting makeup done before, you know, film or video. And like, what's wrong with my face? And you're like, nothing. But we need to take pictures and film. And this is production. These are things that we do. Or like lighting. How much light you really need for some of these, for like video and film. That's one of the things too. I like when, especially the last couple of years with bands live streaming and stuff, like, oh, it's too bright. There's too many lights. You get used to it. I have two pretty bright lights on me right now, but you see the difference it makes when you start streaming. Like, you need more light than you actually think. So I will say with the gaming channel, shameless plug, with the gaming channel that I have, like, it is a little bit hard on the eyes after a bit, but like I can do about 2 or 3 hours, and I'm like, I need to take a break. Also, you should get up, at least walk around every 2 or 3 hours. Patterson saying, you allow others to send messages to your personal page. It's whatever it is. What is... well, again, there's only so many hours in a day. I hear you, Patterson, but I do most of my interactions with people, such as yourself, on here. So again, I use Facebook for work. And I try to... I've significantly limited my doom scrolling on Facebook the past couple of years. But it can definitely be a time vampire. Same with Twitter as well. Time vampire. I like YouTube. So I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know how the YouTube algorithm is going to take it. But I'm trying to think of a way to word it. The last couple weeks, some of the major events that have happened in the world, apparently there's a whole lot less bots on Twitter. And it's like noticeable, the bots being missing. So do with what you want that information, but I did think that was interesting. But one of the talks I listened to last couple months, they're talking about the internet not being real, in the sense that, like, so much of the internet, so much of the content is like AI generated, that it's not actually people making things and posting. It's just computers kind of either regurgitating things for SEO purposes, or just bots and auto responses and stuff like that. And I thought that was really interesting. But anyways, the events the last couple of weeks over in Europe, and how some users don't have access to services and platforms such as Twitter, just how fewer bots are actually on the platform, which is interesting. That being said, when the singularity happens, when AI becomes self-aware, that's going to be interesting. Possibly influencing people's decision making, their buying and their voting and whatnot. So if you're just joining us, I'm just looking through these transients here. I've added trigger points in for a kick drum, so I'm just making sure nothing's too far out of whack, because we were just kind of dropping those in using tab to transient. Patterson, I'll catch up to your messages in a second. I see them keep popping up there. Oh, there we go. I thought it fell off the edge of the universe. There's another way. Buddy Chris Snow was telling me he listens through the kick track on the like one side of the headphone and then the sample on the other, to make sure that all the kicks are there. And I could see how that could be very efficient. I just think it's slower potentially than this. I guess it depends on the song though, and the genre. If it's metal, sometimes you might have like a whole like pile of kick drums. Excuse me, a whole pile of kick drums to kind of go through. So listening in real time might actually sound a bit like a little bit quicker to listen through. But again, there's lots of different ways to do these methods and these production methods. So whatever works for you, just roll with it. They all get in the end zone. I like my sports analogies and my food analogies. So. Okay. Actually, I might make that a thing. This is the first time I've referred to that last little bit as edge of the universe. I like that quite a bit. Patterson says LOL 447. I'm not sure what that means. All right, so now we're going through the snare track. So there might be a little bit more work to do to kind of put this in, to align this. And we've taken our trigger from, our sample from, like that one's pretty far off from the song. So it should be pretty close as far as what the waveform looks like. We just got to get it lined up with it. So this one might be a little bit more work here. And we're using the grabber tool to just pull it over. I have a trackball. That's how I'm able to kind of move this. I highly recommend, mouse is totally cool, but I highly recommend a trackball. It's a little bit more, a little bit more finesse when it comes to moving some of these tracks around. Doing for time 1:30. Okay, we're moving along here. It's taking, or not say taking, but like 6 to 8 hours has been, I think, around the average so far of working on these tracks. The first one, the Alan Stone one, that was a live recording as well. Again, killer players on it. But yeah, it's been about 6 to 8 hours, which like 6 to 10 hours for me is pretty normal for mixed stuff. Because there's usually some prep involved and then actually mixing. But like half of that time can be just prep. Just getting everything sorted out and moving the faders around a bit, turn stuff up, turn stuff down. Joking about earlier today. Describing what you do for a living badly. Turn stuff up, turn stuff down. You would hear these. You'd hear like a flam because it would trigger it before the actual snare drum was played. So you're just trying to line those up a little bit. That one's way out. That one, what's going on there? Well, that's a little pickup one because the -6 there looks okay. So there's a bit more work on this one than the kick drum. There's no toms in this song. There's no microphones on the tom. I think it's just kick, snare, hi-hats. There's no crashes or anything. Very, very disciplined drummer to not either play all that stuff if it is part of the kit or to not actually bring those things. Okay, something going on there. Yep, that should be fine. We have to get some official I'm editing background music. All right, we're getting there. It's another minute and a half. But there's just a lot more to move on these snare drums. And we'll just kind of use, I'm gonna go for one of my presets just so kind of speed things up. But we can use or affect the ADSR. So attack, decay, sustain, release. As far as to shape the sound a little bit, because the way the drums sound to me, there could be a little bit electronic, so we can mess around with those samples quite a bit and kind of create something that sounds like a kick or snare, like electronic sample. I have, again, like pretty much every drum machine has been sampled now. I can't remember who. There's a company that like released like the mega mother load of samples from all the different drum machines, and like everyone downloaded it, and it was overwhelming how much was there. But like Lin drum and stuff like that, they probably sound pretty good for those samples on here, because you can also like put actual samples in, like we're putting in these trigger points too, and that was the older way of doing that. You would actually put in the samples you wanted to use and then mix around that. But now we have programs like Trigger 2 where you can add the samples there and it will trigger off of them, and you can really manipulate the samples a lot easier with it, especially if you want to add something in. So I just use this as a main trigger point, and then I can affect the samples after instead of having to lay in new samples. If you wanted a different snare or kick sound or different toms, or if you want to tune the sample, you can do that right in trigger too. So a little bit more efficient that way. Again, I could probably just throw the plugin right on here, but I want to make sure this is right from start to finish. Oh, we're getting there. Just want to zoom out just for hope. Oh, it looks like there's a lot, but there's not a lot. Again, the big part with this is kind of a dancey track. I want to go get that pulse. Get that pulse from the drums, but I'm not sure I can get there as efficiently trying to carve and gate and do a bunch of stuff to the kick and snare that's there. So still keeping the performance. We're just using this to kind of augment the sounds a little bit. And I will say too, a little bit of psychology. I'm not a psychologist, but a little bit of psychology. Sometimes when the band sees stuff like this, they instantly don't like it because it's production that they don't want to accept. You know, they think some of this stuff is cheating or makes it sound bad. It's like, just ignore all the production stuff and listen to the end result. I was raised on better is better. And for the most part, better is usually better. But when bands start to see behind the curtain for certain things, they form opinions on it based on how they think it should be. And another reason to kind of keep people out of the operating room at times, because they don't want to see the reality of what happens with some of the production stuff, especially with some vocals. Like, I know there's a lot of, you hear it online. We're like, oh, autotune's cheating. Tuning your vocals is cheating. Just sing it again. Or like it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's misleading, or what's the word I'm looking for? That big term commercially, false advertising. It's like, well, no, like it's just production stuff. Usually makes it better. Usually makes it better for the listener when it's not distracting. Even stuff that's kind of pitchy on like big commercially viable stuff, it's like probably ran through Melodyne. They probably dusted over it a little bit. So don't kid yourself. They didn't tune anything. They're often selling the story. Done. Okay, so we don't have any toms to do. I need to move here because I haven't moved in. Feels like we're going on 2 hours here. So we've added our kicks and snare samples in. Let's go back to our kick track. Just going to solo both of those. I'm going to go to trigger 2. Again, presets are fair game. I can never remember where I actually kept, like where they put this. Instrument. I'm going to try to find it the old-fashioned way. I'm not seeing it. I'm just going to type it in. See, I know that it is there. So it's a mono track, but I do put a stereo track on here. I'm just going to go to my main raw kick. Why not? We can tailor that a little bit after, but I'm just going to get these lined up here. Our snare drum. Katie says, I think autotune can be cheating if the band is terrible to begin with. I would agree, but it's production. It's production. That's all it gets down to. That being said, if a band can't do it live, that's kind of on, to me, that's kind of on production. Production should have been mindful of that, but their job is to sell the song, not the band usually. So okay, so we've added our samples in here. We'll mess with that. Let's mess with the kick first. So we'll bring this down. Now, I want to make this sound a little bit more, like actual electronic drums. So I'm just going to see what we have to work with here. I just brought in one of my presets. Presets are fair game. Also, our kick. I'm just going to highlight all this stuff. Shift Option. I'm going to go to bus because I can see my buses are not the same on the new samples there. I'm liking that. I'm liking that a lot. I'm going to say that looks pretty good. Maybe. It sounds pretty good. I'm just going to change the ADSR here. I'm going to put that on all those too. So now it's off because I have no sustain. If you want to soften the attack, you can just move that over a little bit. Because sometimes with kick drums, you want it to be a little bit more boofy or like woolly sounding. But I want to keep that attack there. Nope. Don't need the tails on it. I'm liking that tail. Sounds good. Just be mindful of our levels here too. It's really easy to have this just crush the output. Okay, also, because we're good, we can mute our vocals, we can mute the pad synth there, we can mute our guitar, and we can mute all our bass stuff. And our snare drum, so it's pretty dry. So let's see what we have to work with here. That chili pepper snare drum there. So let's go to where we know we have our snare here. I can see it right here. Those are kind of my two main go-tos. I think I'll lean on that one. I'm going to listen to... I can tune that a little bit. Again, it's one of those things that makes it a little bit easier. I can hear a little bit of a note on the ring of that snare drum. So I just kind of tune that to the song a little bit. And then let's add some weight to it. Now we can go back into curves again. And let's tighten this up. Feel a little bit like a sample. We can always adjust this in the track later as well. We're just kind of blocking things in. And just keep an eye on our levels. The snare drum can get away from you real quick. All right, let's see if we've made this better or worse. Always. Okay, so we've laid in our samples there. We can lean on those a little bit just to get that pulse coming out of the song a little bit more. So without... Sounds pretty raw. Sounds like live recording. That all sounds normal. But we can do a little bit more leaning on that. I'm going to hop out of my headphones for a bit because I want to get some balances and I want to add some compression and just a few things on the subgroups. But I don't know what's happening in here. So just give me 5, 10, 15, whoops, my other headphones, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes messing around with stuff. So I need to mute this so that the speakers and everything aren't kind of looping back and causing phase issues. So be right back.
this emptiness. Every day has been somewhat tough to me. By your grown shadow, haunting my sickness. I walked over centuries worth of land no man could give to me. And when I found the one, he took all the shame and pain away. All I can say is I blame you for loving me. All I can see, I blame you for all the hurting. By this emptiness. Breathing fire into the night, thinking of you. It feels so done. Open.
Okay, messed around with a few things. Mainly doing balancing, trying to find my balance with the kit and the samples. Put on the old trusted channel strip. I just like this setting where I use the channel strip in Pro Tools, the stock one, and I just like the snare drum aggressive, and I turn off the EQ for it. I just like it. It seems to do something for me. But I did rename it, use this for drums. So I'm just going to say that setting. It just gets things kind of quickly put together. Again, there's like 50,000, okay, maybe 500 usable compressors available. But the stock Pro Tools stuff, it's still very usable. And again, I've just been using stock EQ3 Pro Tools for all the EQ stuff. So balancing the drums. One of the biggest things I found here, by affecting the attack softening it, like that made a big difference to how it was sitting in the kit. Let's turn this up a little bit for me. Again, just trying to find a balance with some of these electronic sounds, the keyboards and stuff. So that's coming along as far as like the drum sounds. I'm liking what's going on there. There's still more work to do on the actual subgroup, but just blocking things in, kind of finding a balance. If there's more editing to do, which I do want to look at the vocals a little bit in the near future. Probably next episode I'll get into the vocals. Excuse me. But there's work to do with the guitars here because of the pitch shifter that's on it, kind of the spacey effect that's there. It jumps around a lot. Soothe 2 might help balance that out quite a bit, but I'll likely will split this into 2 or 3 tracks total so that we have 2 kind of lower ones we can mess with on either side and then use that main guitar and just find where that wants to live. And I just put through a compressor, just using stock Pro Tools stuff, threw that on the mix bus there. Diesel's here, how's it going? Just as I like where it's heading. Well, are you just hopping in here now? But that guitar is pretty scrappy. So I was trying to get rid of some of the fizziness up top. And again, that stuff, that pitch shifty, it's expensive sounds. He says, yeah, sorry, I got here. It's all good. You missed like 40 minutes of me putting in drum samples. Okay, I'm liking the drums. So if I mute those samples, it sounds pretty live. But we're able to get that weight of that kick and snare to make it kind of dancey. Because really, our room mics, like our overheads, is really just the hi-hat. I mixed a bit more of the original kick and snare back in just to get some type of ambience. But we'll keep messing around with that. What else? Oh, I put my headphones on because we can, just trying to think of a couple more things to do here. We can add, I'm going to make 2, nope, not new session. Shift Command N. I'm going to make 3 aux tracks. And I do, for my effects, I use mono aux tracks, but I put stereo effects on them. That way, in my world, I only need to use 1 bus to send over to it. I don't need to use a stereo bus to send over to it. So my go-to, delay short, delay long, and a reverb. So in my usual way of working, I use bus 9 for my short delay. I use bus 10 for long delay. You can rename all these if you want. You can just go up into setup and then IO and then go to buses and you can rename them in here. But I'm not the type of person to do that. I just kind of have your, certain ways of working and you remember those things. But I know some people who name their vocal bus and name their reverb sends and stuff like that. I do not do that. I just keep it numbers. Let's go to the first one here, plugin. We'll just use some stock Pro Tools stuff, believe it or not. EQ3. So I put stereo effects on these buses. So these are mono buses, but I'll put stereo effects on them so you can see them switch to stereo tracks. I still have, no, I don't want H delay. H delay is just too much business for everybody right now. But I am liking for reverbs. I am liking that lustrous plate. It's pretty good. I would normally just use Deverb because it's the stock Pro Tools one, but like lustrous plate sounds freaking awesome. So this is where I want to go. Just as far as building, I'm going to resave this as mix prep 2. I'm going to have a hotkey so I can just hit Shift, Command, and S to bring that up. Highly recommend doing that. Just go into System Preferences, Keyboard, and then you can make a setting. I can make a short video of how to do that should someone be curious about it. But I just wanted to put our delays on here because I feel like maybe even our keyboards. Again, this thing here. There's some cleaning up of some of the keyboards and sounds and stuff too. But even this keyboard sound here, it's going to turn it up for those in the back. But I'm like that. I kind of can hear. I'm going to go to bus 10. That's our long delay. And it's got to turn it up. And I'm going to put this on quarter notes. I'm going to link those two together. Turn up the feedback. Feedback is how many delays we're going to hear. And one of the things we can do here, we can turn link off now. Turn this one down just a little bit. Turn that one up one click. Just to give it a little bit more width. Also what we can do is I'll just go to one of my other presets here. There's lots of ways to add width to things. I'm talking and trying to find it. There it is. I kind of have a vocal widener. Nope, not that. Okay, because even that synth sound there, I just want to try something. And again, people at home could be throwing their popcorn at the TV watching me do this. But we have our tempo at 103. I don't know if it is accurate. It's accurate at the very beginning, and then it starts to shift a little bit. Just want to add a little bit of... Nope. Oh, come on. A little bit of sauce using the quick delay here. Will we hear it? Not sure. Hear it soloed, but... going to rebalance this a little bit too. I can make this a little bit louder. There we go. So same thing with this keyboard over here. We can go to our reverb send. So I'm just going to bypass the delay there. So we're just hearing the reverb. And we'll just crank that up so we can really hear it. And just scrolling through some presets because I'm still kind of new to this. There's lots in here. Like a lot of this stuff too, like it's not precious for me. I know some people that are like be very precious about their effects and how they get them. I scroll through presets all the time because there's lots of heavy lifting that's kind of done with some of those things, but it's how you use said heavy lifting that's already done. I'm going to go to my snare drum, my sampled snare drum. I'm going to put our reverb on that because I want to hear the tale of what's going on. I want to hear the story, the legend. Huge vocal sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty large. I'm liking that one. Can buy that. Okay, drums just sounding pretty dark. It's a couple things. It's a lot of messages, Patterson, in the chat. Your keyboard works. I'm going to hop out for a couple more minutes. I want to just add a little bit of EQ. My ears don't feel warm. When my ears feel warm, that's when I know the top end starts to kind of go for my hearing as far as like fatigue setting and stuff like that. I want to hop in and just add a couple more EQ things. We're almost 2.5 hours in. I think probably that 2.5 to 2:45 is probably the sweet spot today. Be right back. Patterson, I have no idea where you get that imagination of yours. I said I was going to work on the EQ for the drums, and I started messing around with other stuff. I'm aware of that. I put the pull tack on there. I did a little bit of carving using the EQ3, just a couple frequencies that were jumping out. Usually there's a lot more brass cymbals and stuff to work with. Usually carve a little bit more of that out. Wasn't needing to deal with that so much today because most of our drum overhead sound is just from our hi-hats that we're working with. But I did put the pull tech on there to get a little bit more air. But I did put a saturation plugin on here called the Decapitator. Fantastic plugin. I usually don't use it this much. Excuse me, but I liked what it was doing to the overall drum kit, just adding some more weight to it. Because that's what I'm really kind of missing is weight to things. And also, in my mind, needing to pull back some of the harsh frequencies from the guitar. If I can make things sound, if I can create a nice, dense, lower frequency bed for everything, when I'm pulling those frequencies out of the guitar, I can sit that back and then I can add more top end to the entire mix to brighten it all up. I think that might work. If it doesn't work, well, I tried. I tried my best. Also, I put the saturation on the bass synths and the Moog and the MPC and stuff. And I liked what it was doing, adding some overtones, some harmonics to that. So I was messing with that. And then just for good measure, I threw it onto the synth as well, that Virus synth that's there. And that seemed to do a little bit something too. So usually don't put this much saturation on things. Sometimes I'll put that on the actual mix bus and kind of add it to taste. But It's sounding pretty good to me, or it's sounding better to me with it, so I decided to use that. I added my EQ onto my main mix bus, not anything happening on it yet, but there will be eventually, and then I'm just liking it. I'm just liking. I like whatever this Abbey Road default does. It's subtle, but I like it. Yeah, I like whatever it's doing. I know I have a lot of reverb on the snare, but it's my show and I like it. I think it sounds pretty fun. So kind of thinking that's where I might leave off today. Looking at my notes, fine tempo we did, add markers we did, tune vocals. I'll prep vocals next time. I'll have a little bit more look. It's tricky because there's so much bleed and it's like, how much do you want to carve around your vocals? And then deal with the kind of phase relationships that are probably going to happen when the vocal comes in. So we'll address that next time. Get tempo. I already said that. There's no bass, but there's a keyboard bass, widening guitars. We'll figure that. One thing they did do is I tried to just carve. Where are we here? What's the better guitars to? So we have one guitar that's the more top end, and the other one I just filtered out, try to get a little bit more the tone from it. Again, it's cool guitar parts. It's just harsh. We need to kind of deal with that. That's what I mentioned. It's a 4-piece band. Did that. Add movement. We'll do that next time. As far as the guitars are concerned, as far as just to add a little bit more movement, because it's like I have a correlation meter in front of me, and it's very mono right now because we need to figure out a way to kind of widen this mix out a little bit, and it's going to help the vocals sit a bit better. Gain stage instruments, did that. Saturation on drums / everything. Oh, you bet. Fine vocal tone, we'll do that next time as well. Time keys and bass. There's a couple spots where I think we need to a little nudge and shift because it is a performance. So that can be a next time thing. But the delays sound pretty good to me. The reverbs, again, illustrious plates. It sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good. Not to pump anyone's tires, but like they did a good job on that one. Fantastic. But I think that's about it for today. So I think I'm just going to save this. So Shift Command U, Shift Command B to get rid of any unused clips we don't need. And as always, save copy in audio files. This is where it crashed last time, so I'm going to just manually save here for a second. Save copy in audio files. Let me just have a kind of a temp backup folder here. I'm just going to dump everything in there. And we'll just put that in there. So we're just saving that. Saving that is good. Well, I hope this was entertaining today. Hope people learned something today. Again, we've been working on Morning Sickness by Bosnian Rainbow. Again, Omar Rodriguez Lopez, guitar player from the Mars Volta, one of my favorite, I want to say rock bands, but it's just like, it's beyond rock band. Their first record is bananas, what's happening with that one. So highly recommend checking that out if you are a rock fan. But I did find this, again, where I get these sessions from, it's a site called Cambridge Music Technology. So I highly recommend checking that out if you're a new mixer, or you're an old mixer and you're just looking for stuff to kind of mess around with. Fantastic resource, and that's where I found this track. So I just want to thank them for making this track available for us to work on the next few sessions here. Again, we are here Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Thursdays at 12 p.m., aka noon p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, my name is Mike Langford. I'm a producer, engineer, and mixer based out of Toronto, Canada. And here on Let's Mix Live, we do some live streams of mix sessions, start to finish, warts and all, showing examples of what can be done during modern mix production. So thanks again, everybody. If you're watching YouTube, remember to like, subscribe, help support the channel. Tell a friend too. Check some of these out, especially if they have questions about mix. And again, it's 101 different ways to make something sound good. And I'm here not to tell you what you should do. I'm here to tell you what you could do. All right, that's my time for today. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for taking part in the chat. I'll talk to you later.